In this tutorial, we will look at multiparameters and how they are used to create so-called active presets. For this, we will use M-Dynamics. When first started, you will see a list of the default active presets on the left-hand side. An active preset is similar to a normal preset, but with up to 4 controls in most plugins. This default active preset, named Compressor, utilizes all 4 controls to create a simple compressor unit. Switching to the Edit mode allows us to see how this active preset works. We can see the 4 multi-parameters here, each with a corresponding control on the Easy screen. For example, changing the threshold here also changes it on the Easy screen. This first multi-parameter simply moves the threshold parameter of processor 1. Let's create a new active preset from scratch. We start by loading the default preset, which has no defined multi-parameters. As you can see, all 4 multi-parameters are available and all have default names. The Easy screen, therefore, contains no controls. If we click on a multi-parameter button, the settings are displayed, and we can check that there is no name specified. To define the first multi-parameter, we right-click on it, select Learn, and move the input gain parameter, and click on it again. Now open the multi-parameter settings to specify its name. Let's call it Drive. The multi-parameter now shows percents as units, but as we are talking about input gain, it would be appropriate to use dB. Open the settings again and change the value mode from the default percents to the by first parameter value. The multi-parameter can control several parameters. This setting lets it display the units of the first one. Now let's select the default value, in our case 0 dB. Click on the Set Current Value as Default button to confirm this should be the default. Now check the Easy screen to see that our active preset now has one control. Again, we can make sure this control is just a clone of the multi-parameter. Let's create another control using multi-parameter 2. This one will control both the threshold and ratio. This will control the amount of compression, so we will name it Compression. Disable Maximize Signal Strength to 0 dB, which is basically an automatic makeup gain. The multi-parameter now controls the threshold and ratio, but the results don't look right. The ratio should increase with the decreasing threshold to provide more compression. So let's invert the ratio. Better, but at 0% it exerts the most compression, so we need to invert the whole multi-parameter and therefore all the parameters. Now it works as expected. The Easy screen now contains both controls, the drive and the compression. Now let's use the third multi-parameter to control attack and release times. The multi-parameter is now correctly controlling both of the parameters, so next we will need to set an appropriate interval value. We can name the multi-parameter Speed and change it to show milliseconds instead of percentages. Now to define the parameter ranges. For the attack, we'll choose 0 to 100 milliseconds. This will also be the range for the multiparameter. Our release will be from 10 to 500 milliseconds, as this will ensure it is always slightly higher than the attack. Let's check that the multiparameter behaves as expected. And finally, the easy screen. To see the active preset working, we'll play a short drum loop. It sounds pretty good at a speed of 20 milliseconds, so let's make that the default by going to the Edit screen and using the Set Default Value button again. Now right-click on each knob to select the default values. For the last remaining multiparameter, we will choose the switch mode. This is quite useful in many creative effects. The multiparameter will control the dry-wet ratio parameter. Let's open its settings and name it. There are 3 different modes available. In normal mode, the multiparameter works as a slider or a knob. In other modes, it becomes a button. When clicked, the multiparameter increases its value over a set period of time. In switch mode, the button has 2 states: pushed when the value is rising and not pushed when the value is decreasing. In trigger mode, which we will use here, a click on the button starts the value rising until the maximum is reached, then it starts to fall. Let's change the trigger time period to 2 seconds. The slider has now been replaced by a button. Every time it is pushed, the dry-wet value starts rising until 100% is reached. It then starts falling back to 0%. On the easy screen, there is also a button instead of a knob. When we hit the button, the gain reduction should start increasing as it controls the dry-wet parameter. Not much is happening simply because the compression is too low, so let's make it more aggressive. Note that the value starts rising every time we press the button. Finally, let's save our active preset. Although the default set of active presets cannot be changed, we can use the normal presets. Note that we should be on the easy screen, otherwise the preset would also open the edit screen when loaded. So first, we save the new preset. Now let's click on a few active presets so that we lose our settings. Then load the preset again. And it's back, except for one small problem. The compression parameter doesn't have the correct default value. Actual values are always stored in the preset. This may sometimes be preferable, but not in this case. Right-click on the knob to restore its default value and replace the preset. Now try again. Active presets can really speed up your workflow, and they are so simple to create. In many cases, an active preset becomes a new plugin that you created yourself.